Hello everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. A great recipe for this time of the year especially, and it's called Delicious Bread Bowls. It's a warm and hearty meal and you can fill it with any kind of stew that you desire. And I will also show you the recipe for this creamy chicken stew on my next video. Okay, so this recipe will make enough for about 10 bread bowls. So start by pouring 4.5 cups of warm water into a large mixing bowl. Check the temperature to make sure it's lukewarm. Now add 3 rounded tablespoons of white sugar. I put in a good 2¼ tablespoons of fast rising dry yeast. Whisk that together a little bit and then let it sit for about 5 minutes. It just needs a little bit of time for the yeast to start to activate. Now add 1 tablespoon of salt. And I add the first 2 cups of white all-purpose flour. You'll need close to 9 or 10 cups altogether. And then we'll melt some butter. Then add about 6 tablespoons of melted butter. Make sure that they're full tablespoons. Now I place the mixing bowl on the mixer and add the hook attachment and let it do all the work. Kind of start slowly by mixing it together until it's combined. Now add another 4 cups of all-purpose flour. And then mix that together again. Mix that together until the dough looks a little bit elastic. Add another 2 cups of all-purpose flour and mix it in again. And it's now starting to look a little bit more like dough. And here's the texture of what it looks like now. So it still needs a little bit more of the flour so that it will cling together better and not be so tacky. Still needs a little bit more flour. But it makes it hard to mix it in the mixer at this point because the dough starts to get quite large in volume. At this point, add your flour 1 cup at a time and mix it in the mixer as long as you can. And then when the mixer's got so it can't handle it anymore, I turn it out onto a floured board and knead the rest by hand. And be careful not to add too much flour. So like I said, 1 cup at a time. And even less if you think that you don't need that, and we want it to be able to hold together and not be so tacky. So I'm going to knead the rest of it here and make it into a nice smooth ball. You can tell I don't need so much flour, so I'm getting rid of the excess, and this part will take a few minutes. The dough's starting to smooth out really good, so I'm going to get rid of all the excess flour. We don't need that anymore. And I will actually work with it using a little bit of oil instead. So I'm just spraying my hands with a little bit of oil, and I'll finish kneading the dough with that on my hands, and it will help to make it even more smooth and pliable. This will be a very stiff dough to work with. Make sure your bowl is nice and clean and spray it with oil so that you can put the dough back into the bowl and allow it to rise. I even add a little bit of oil to the dough and make sure that I've kneaded that in. And we want the dough to be nice and pliable like this. It's looking better. This is the consistency that I'd like to see the dough. And then go ahead and plop the dough into the bowl. Get a little grease on top and then turn it over, and then we'll cover it and let it rise for about 30 to 40 minutes. You can cover it with a towel or some plastic wrap, but don't make it tight. Make sure it's loose so that the dough has room to rise. The dough should rise up to almost double in size. And make sure your kitchen is warm and free of drafts. So I've greased the counter, plop the dough out. You can see how it's much more airy. and we're good to go ahead and get this divided into portions. Then take each individual portion and roll it into a smooth ball. So they should be about 4 inches across and nice and smooth. Place parchment paper on a cookie sheet and place your nice smooth dough balls on top of the parchment paper on the cookie sheet. Leave some space between them so that they have room to rise and they don't stick together. Now let's make for a nice crispy outside crust. So I'll make an egg wash. I'll use 1 egg white and I'll add a little bit of water and a little bit of milk and then whisk that together. Now we'll brush the top of each of our bread bowls with the egg wash. Now I sprinkle a little bit of salt on the top of each of them. Then cover them lightly with some more plastic wrap, and I let them rise for another 30 to 45 minutes. When they've had the time to rise and it's time to put them in the oven, then we'll go ahead and put them in a preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes, and they're golden brown. Now then I remove them from the oven, and then I go ahead and grease the tops of them with a little bit of margarine or butter. I'm going to place them on a wire rack to cool off a little bit. But you can use them fresh out of the oven while they're still hot as well. So for the purpose of the video, I'm going to go ahead and cut one open and fill it with the stew that I have prepared for it. Be sure to use a sharp knife and make enough of a hole that you have a large enough well to have a nice bowl of stew in. So after cutting the top out and making a little wedge like that, you will likely have to hollow it out a little bit more to make your bowl a little larger. And just use the extra pieces that come out and eat them just like they are. It is so good you won't want to waste any of it. You can slap a little bit of butter on the extra pieces and enjoy. Stay tuned because on the next video I'll show you how to make this delicious chicken stew. In my opinion, it's one of the best stews to have in this bread bowl. Thanks for taking the time to comment in the comment section and for watching this video all the way through. And until next time, happy eating! Merry Christmas, everyone!